What I'm going to do here tonight, I'm going to read a few shorts, and I'm going to go into a final short from my forthcoming novel, Cosmic Midnight Night Shifters. Conflicto, and if anybody's got a saxophone to play, I was supposed to have accompaniment and she didn't make it. If anyone feels like playing the saxophone or the harmonica or something, I welcome it. Conflicto, contradicto, ambiguini was afflicted with such an extreme disorder. He was always going both ways. Sometimes it almost seemed like he would be running to the subway station, waving his arms to catch the next departing train, and he would meet himself running back from the same subway station, waving his arms to stop the departing UPS truck, which probably wanted him to sign for something. "Where am I going anyway?" he demanded. "Who am I? I'm going so fast all the time." He was always multitasking, able to get a lot done. He had trouble placing himself on a map, except by listing his latest accomplishments, which would usually tell him the order of business from which he could figure out where he had likely most recently been, or now was, or what he was trying to do. It was like he had transcended most of the last dimension and was making a new home in the other, which had a whole different way of keeping track of identity and location. He was having so much fun. "What's going on here?" he demanded. "What's up?" These are some of my friends. Let me tell you about my friends. Johnny Jackson, you remember him, running dog from his days at the track, lean and long-jawed and now always grinning with sunglasses on. Spent all day, every day in the subway, now holding out tin cups and begging. A new cup each day kept him fresh, so the passers-by never felt close to a trash can. Most other bum dogs held their cups out like tiny trash cans, and the passers-by shunned them. And Johnny's clean cups sucked in coins all day like slot machines. They just kept going in. Clink, clink, clink. He sure made a strange pair with his two-headed pal, Bill or Bob Officer, depending who was speaking. You might say there were three of them, really, but they only had 4 legs between them and only 4 arms. There were only 2 bodies, except for the one extra head and another half chest that had grown out of Officer. Bill or Bob was unable to speak at the same time as each other. The whole thing was unlikely. It was not some new kind of freak show, not a trio. They made a funny pair, standing there in the subway, this grinning dog, wearing sunglasses and an overcoat as if blind, right next to this humanoid monster thing with 2 heads standing beside him. Was the dog really blind or just wearing sunglasses? It got hard to tell. All right. Anonimo created the world a long time ago. No one knew who or what he or she or it even was, but somehow all this has come to exist. Anonimo must have done it. Some people were blessed by unknown forces and favored with excellent results in terms of their lifestyle, material holdings, and so forth, and they thanked Anonimo. All the unlikely patrons who groveled in filth, they felt blamed by Anonimo and were generally considered to be the accursed of Anonimo. Some of them even perverted the rituals and deliberately did them backwards or smeared them with bloody waste to offend the inscrutably omniscient Anonimo, who never hardly noticed. Ha ha ha, we all had a good laugh. It was so funny, like an Italian god. Ha ha ha, funny 'cause it's true. Surreptitio, his acolyte. Mistakio, ha ha ha, opera man. Agrimo, yes. Life was so much easier back then. Life was a freshly turned field in those days. My buddy Rooster and his cousin Dracula Lee Fisher and me was walking down an alley yesterday, and Rooster was talking. He is always talking. "The problem with medicine," he announced, "is it's made to get you sick. That way it makes you always need more medicine. If you think about it." Rooster was always talking. It always had to do with how something had been prearranged against everyone in the opposite way of how it was supposed to work, like a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is the germ of all illness, he followed. Sometimes it was cereal manufacturers, the Bible, product descriptions, whatever it was on that day. It seemed like the 3 of us was always walking along down roads in those days, picking the occasional slivers of glass from all the broken whiskey bottles left behind by the pioneers before us, and goat's heads out of the soles of our bare feet. Sometimes wiping the blood off with crumpled up pieces of trash. "Consarn it, Dracula Lee," bemoaned Rooster, "don't that beat all?" acting like an old hillbilly. He knew I wouldn't listen. All three of us was born into the oldest flying trapeze family of the Great Lost Circus, but then they outlawed the whole act and kicked us three out on the road. We kept trying to contort our various tricks out there, but it wasn't the same in the hot, sunny public as under the circus big top. It was hard to get money that way. We had to practice and learn funny dances of spinning around on our backs in the oil stains like crabs to get money. That was all the people in this city seemed to pay good money for. Ripped him off for his headphones using a counterfeit $10 bill of all the worthless, grimy, no-good things to do while skulking around in society's dirty street wearing a black sack over his head and spitting out tar-blackened styrofoam ends of cigarette butts after spending that counterfeit $10. He needed a plan. Well, the cops came snooping around like they always do sooner or later, and Bucky had to take out one sap with a blackjack while using his gun, and a sap on the other $2 came sneaking up around the corner reaching into some kind of special police backpack. What happened was he was talking about plans to break into a warehouse, find the hidden stash of diamonds he swore was down there under the boxes somewhere, and they followed him home and decided to bust him. In a way, it was all based on his whole strange trip over cardboard boxes and diamonds. His eyes were red-rimmed. He kept staring off into blank space, spinning out his wild plans to wreck wizards and unsettle star patterns, more and more plans all the time. This guy had so many hardened street life plans and high upscale society plans. It was hard to keep up with so many wild plans, just a whole bunch of plans strung together with bones and flesh and eyes. That's how we saw him. And a mouth always telling his plans. Whatever it took to break into whatever the place was. Plan ahead, he shouted. Don't be careful, you might pass the light switch. Don't let society kick you in the head on the way back upstairs. Always have a plan B. All right. And that was a little bit, thank you. A very short selection from the more serious, most recent book. Whenever another person would get up and leave at one of the stops, the ass warmth vampire would whoosh right over and sit right where the departed person had just been sitting, soaking up all the warmth from the most recently departed ass. By this logic, her own ass would always be the warmest on the train. It happened 3 separate times, Howard witnessed, before she got off herself. Immediately, he rushed over and sat down right where she'd been sitting, feeling the warmth from her ass full of everyone's warmth surging into his own as the light rail curled down into the Broadway hub, where he transferred to a bus heading north. He managed to squeeze $50 out of the stringy-haired skeletal clerk at Haskell's for his rediscovered manhood by saying he'd found it on a shelf in his new apartment along with the illegible handwritten slip Tom Hamburger had given him all those months before, conferring ownership. I don't know if it's legal or whatever. I was just hoping I could get some cash for it. I'm a pacifist. The skull-faced clerk made Howard sign a yellow slip, then extended a crumpled $50 bill. Howard took it from his hand while the galaxy went on turning wakefully in its bed of soft emptiness, and the atoms burned and radiated. God, you joker, he thought. Other countries saw this one as a moil of hidden forces, all trying to fool each other, all focused on tricking the unknowing masses for different, specific reasons, everything from mind control to cocaine sales to child sex rings. The mafia was probably up to something too. Faked identity scares were a big part of the incremental destruction of faith in standards planned by the hidden powers. And the entertainment industry was in the hands of sex maniacs or pedophiles. Realizing all this, Howard felt like one of the many people trapped in the same big weird maze again and utterly humbled by God for acting like such an island about everything all the years of his life. A good place to start over. Very well then, I contradict myself, said the universe, Walt Whitman and Schrodinger's cat. Facebook is ruining civilization, railed a former executive there. There's no compassion anymore, no ethics, it's all chaos. Pot was still legal in Denver, but there was talk of removing the good parts and replacing them with something addictive and bad from Monsanto. Hopefully that was fake news. Tawadro Magnus met a woman who promised to give him her kidney, but they broke up after a few weeks. Christmas was canceled in Nazareth in protest of the president's Jerusalem decision. Propaganda red hot on both sides. As the hole in us gapes ever wider, the basket of water breaks in our womb, and a wrinkled head forces its way out, yelling. Yeah. Thank you.